Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Life. I'm James Baggett. I'm the founder of Car Dealer magazine, and today I'm absolutely delighted to be chatting to the founder of Carwow, James Hind. Good afternoon, James.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. So, James, I'm absolutely fascinated to hear about how everything started for your business. So, let's rewind the clock 10 years, and maybe you could just tell us where this business all began.
So where it all began was at my parents' house. So I was living there. I went to university, studied finance. I did a quick internship at a fund management company, which put me off the finance world for life. Had fun then working as a ski guide for a bit, came back to my parents' house and thought, I haven't got a clue what I wanted to do. So it was my now wife, girlfriend at the time, and I thought we'll start a business together. I like cars, so all the advice I read was do something you love in an area you love. And I'd always read car magazines, always fascinated by cars. And I thought one of the ideas we had was around get what everyone's saying about a car together. So read all the reviews, summarize it for people and help them work out which car to buy. So my wife set up a basic website. I collected all the content and we got going, and we knew nothing. We had no money. We didn't know what we were doing in any sense of the imagination. But that's where it all started at nigh on just over 10 years ago.
And back then, it was called Car Buzz, wasn't it? I think it was
Car Buzz initially, and then we changed to Carwow, 6 years ago?
So, I remember meeting you on a car launch way back then.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it was a Ford launch. I can't remember what car it was. But I remember back then it was Car Buzz, and you clearly had the kernels of an idea for a great business. How did you turn what is effectively a car blog into a global new car sales business?
Basically, we out of necessity is the honest answer. So we had, as you said, a content site, a blog as well, and frankly, we're making no money off it. We couldn't make any money off it. We had a decent amount of traffic, nothing huge, but decent amount of traffic. Couldn't sell ads against it. The kind of free adverts that you can serve through Google wouldn't pay the bills by any stretch of the imagination. So we had to. And what we thought is we got some people coming to the website, ultimately trying to work out which car to buy. We focused on new cars. We always have done. And so we thought, okay, people are coming to the website. They're using us to help work out which new car to buy. And then quite a lot of people just drop an email saying, how do I buy a car? Do I just walk into dealership? Has it changed since the internet? So I started looking into it, and I started speaking to dealers, I started speaking to consumers, asking about how they think, and thought there's an opportunity here. So what we started with was making the email address, my email address, very prominent on the site. Put my telephone number, literally our landline, to our flat at the time, and said, if you're looking to buy a car, give James a ring. And I started speaking to people. They'd say, look, I want to buy a Volkswagen Golf. I'd ring around dealers, help connect them. So no technology whatsoever, but got us speaking to consumers, got us understanding how dealers think about things. And we thought there's something there.
So changing that from taking a few phone calls from people to now supplying leads to huge numbers of dealers. There was a period when you clearly had to grow. So, and at that point you had to get a lot of investment into the business. Was your background in that finance side? Did that help you? Did that help you when it came to that, or was this completely alien?
Completely. The stuff I did at university was completely A, useless, and B, just nothing to do with the real world finance or running a business finance. Now, the way we took it was we realized we had to raise some money because we didn't have any money to invest in marketing and the website. There was nothing. So all I did was cold emailed people who I thought were rich, who had done something vaguely similar. And obviously the vast majority completely ignored my emails or some physical letters even back then I sent. But we managed to scrape together £250,000 from about 12 individuals who were all angel investors, something to do with technology. And they put some money in and it went from there. And we first raised money, I think maybe 6 years ago, or maybe 7 years ago now. And then since then we've raised roughly every kind of 12 to 18 months, largely from venture capital investors. So people who invest in technology businesses, they don't run the business. They just take an equity stake in return for money, and they hope it kind of pays off and give us a huge amount of kind of valued advice and direction over time.
I think we all remember in business those first kind of chats that we have where
Yeah.
they're absolutely crucial. I remember when I launched Cardinal Magazine, going out to see a few advertisers. One of them was HPI back in the day. Bought, you know, typical boardroom meeting where it was had to pitch the magazine to them and they bought into it at the end, and the feeling of relief after that was huge. What was it like back then when you did that to raise £250,000 from those investors? That's massive.
Yeah.
What did it feel like when you finally got that cash in?
I mean, that was one of the moments that felt, I mean, basically it was vindication that there was something here, that it was a business, that these guys were super smart, super experienced, and they thought, okay, we'll put our own money on the line. Previously, it was me and my wife, and then David, who joined us as a co-founder as well. And it was just the three of us who had the belief in it. Having that first people to put their own money in was a big kind of endorsement. And we still feel the same. Every time we raise money, we've done it many times now, but it still feels, okay, great. We've got these new people who believe in what we're doing. Very, very, very exciting.
And what was the sales line back then? I mean, how did you pitch it to those people? I mean, what was your Dragon's Den pitch?
I mean, it was ultimately the thing we relied off always, and still to this day, is buying a car has not changed that much because of the internet. All of our investors always have bought a car themselves. They've all experienced new car buying or used car buying and thought it's just not that different how it used to be. It's just not that consumer friendly. It's really confusing. And their often question is why? Why has no one really fixed this? Why has no one hugely addressed this? And they believe that we can do that, and they invest in it. But it all comes down to, they frankly, as consumers, experience the problem. And that's why ultimately they believe in the business.
So do you think this huge shift we're seeing to online buying now is the catalyst that was needed for the car industry?
Exactly that. It's such a catalyst. So we had lots of dealers, lots of car manufacturers who are working with us, who are maybe a little bit more forward thinking, fine with a bit more au fait with technology, fine to take a risk on stuff. They've been working with us, but now since this, it's just pushed everything forward. So new manufacturers, particularly in Germany with dealers. I mean, we work with majority of dealers now in the UK, but in Germany, where I think 20% of our dealers before the whole crisis said they were fine with selling a car at distance. Now 80% say they're fine with doing it. And there's nothing stopping them doing it. There's no legals, there's no technology solution that they didn't have. It was purely a mindset of, yeah, we're prepared to sell to a consumer over the phone. And it's just a huge shift. So without a doubt, it's a catalyst. And it's the same with consumers. They're obviously way more used to buying stuff online. Lots of people who maybe haven't used e-commerce, etc. before, who are now using it, particularly the older generation, who are the people who tend to buy new cars. Massive shift. So very, very, very positive for us.
So is this going to change what you do in the future, James? I mean, are you spotting a new opportunity now for Carwow with this?
It's not radically different. We just frankly know that we have an even stronger position in the market, that a lot of dealers relied on that showroom, their local geography, to attract people to their area who wanted to buy the brand of car that they sell. They can't rely on that anymore. They were relying on it less and less, obviously, over time as test drives gone down, as walk-ins go down. It just accelerated for maybe, 5 years or so. So it hasn't radically changed what we do. It's just kind of strengthened what our proposition is ultimately.
James, you've clearly had a few challenges along the way setting up this business. I mean, there's a few that I'd like to delve into. I mean, I think the first one would be how you've managed to win over dealers, because I mean that has definitely been a challenge, hasn't it?
Oh, no, completely. So and I can see why, because we came in new to the market, new to the industry. We had no background in it. We knew no one in the industry. And frankly, we brought quite a lot of transparency for new car pricing that lots of dealers didn't like. They didn't see how that benefited them whatsoever. And it took us quite a long time to get time to meet dealers, explain to them, get them to understand it, show them, prove it in the data as well, get the manufacturers to support it as well. And we're not finished with that by any means. But I can completely see why that change was a bit allergic. Without a doubt, we made mistakes in how we did that. So we made mistakes in how we communicated Carwow to consumers. We made mistakes in how we managed the dealer network. We weren't ruthless enough in banning certain dealers that didn't have good practices. So we've learned a lot from that. And again, there's still a huge amount to do on that.
And you've had your battle with the manufacturers too, haven't you? I mean, most famously, I mean, I think the BMW one. I mean,
Yeah.
am I right in remembering that you took those guys to court?
Not quite. So we had a slight challenge with how they were running the network, and we approached what's called the Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA in the UK, to talk through them with them. It wasn't a court battle, wasn't a formal process. CMA just basically we had a conversation, and they said, yeah, we'd prefer if you allow dealers to work with Carwow. So I think now, frankly, we have good relationships with BMW in the UK and in Germany. We sell a lot of BMWs. But again, we understand it's part of just adapting to a changing environment.
And what would you say has been your biggest challenge with creating the business that you have done now?
I think it's nothing to do with the industry we're in. It's purely always remembering the difference between what great people can do for you as a business. If we manage to attract really great people, amazing things happen. The success we've had in Germany, in Spain, with the YouTube channel, with leasing, with various parts of the product, the website, is ultimately it's nothing to do with me. It's the fact that we managed to get some great people in and they just made amazing things happen. And where the real challenges come in is where you don't get someone who's quite as aligned to what you want to do, or doesn't quite work in the way that you want them to, or with people in the way you want them to. And then it's always a headache. And I think every dealer's experience the same. Like, you've got your great people and you've got your people who you wish would work in a slightly different way, and then it's your job to try and coach them into that.
So
but every challenge is linked to people.
Yeah, I mean, I think like every business person would definitely relate to that, James. And I mean, how would you describe yourself then? I mean, are you a business person or are you a people person? Are you driven by money, or are you driven by cars, by technology? What is it?
I think I've realized over time that I'm a pure generalist. I'm not great at anything. I can lend a hand to anything because I'm very eager to learn. I'll talk to people, I'll read, I'll just get advice from people. So I'm well-rounded, but I think a lot of people would laugh if you said I'm a people person. I'm definitely not a business person in terms of I'm not an expert in finance or P&Ls or anything like that. Again, I think I'm just quite good at getting lots of information together and making the best of it. Definitely not driven by money. I think we'd have had plenty of opportunity to cash out or whatever. Less interested by the fact it's pure cars. I have a passion for cars, but I wouldn't say I'm a petrol head. I just really like solving problems. There's a lot of problems to solve in buying a car in the car industry, and it's great fun just working with people to make it happen.
And what do you focus your time on a daily basis? I mean, how would your working day look?
Well, it's a lot easier now working remotely. You get a huge amount more done. We never used to work remotely very much. I never worked from home personally, and it's just way more efficient for most parts of the business. I think I spend, again, my time is very, very broad. I speak to some car manufacturers. I get involved with the product, with the website, help out with some obviously business discussions, partnerships. Used to spend a bit of time in Germany and Spain as well, where we've got the same business, and always talking with investors. We're never actively raising money in one sense. It's always just all conversations have come from getting to know people, and then many years later, often that turning into them investing in the business. So again, super broad. What's
the business turning over now, James?
So we did last year just over £22 million of revenue. It all comes out. It's a UK business. We're above the threshold, so it all becomes public over time. And we're in a good position. We're not profitable as a business. So like many tech businesses, we raise money to keep investing so that we can keep building the business and growing it. And we do think that's the best position to be in, given our size and opportunity. There's a huge amount more we can do, a huge amount more we can capture. And we've got investors who believe in that, and we'll keep funding the business to grow.
Have you got a plan of when you think you're going to hit profitability?
It varies. So in the UK, on a kind of pure UK basis, we are profitable. But Germany and Spain, we're a slightly different growth areas. We're growing very, very fast in there, so we keep investing in it. We've got new business areas as well that have launched as well that aren't quite pure per se profitable. But we're happy that we don't burn insane amounts of cash versus we know we can raise more. So we'd rather go for the growth overall.
And what about other markets? I mean, you ever thought about targeting the States? I'm sure that's probably come onto the...
Yeah, I mean, I've always said there's two markets we'll never go to. One is China, one is the US. Both radically different markets, fascinating, huge, would never touch with a barge pole. They're both also quite unique. You got 50 states in America, 50, it's like doing 50 markets at once, huge legal challenges, a lot of very successful businesses that do a broadly similar thing. But we know our model works. It's very successful in Germany, very successful in Spain, and that we know there's other countries to do.
So, Joe, have you ever been scared in business? Has the business ever scared you?
Always. I think in the early days, for sure, it's always a case of, but we didn't have any money to lose, but it was a case of it's just not going to go anywhere was the scary bit. It was scary in terms of the early days of if we don't manage to raise more money, we'll run out of money, literally. And it's scary nowadays, I think in a different way. It's more scary that we might not realize the potential. So we've done quite well to date, but there's just so much more we can do. The scary thing is if we only manage to capture a little bit more, that's a failure. There's huge amounts more to do.
And what's the staffing numbers up to now?
So we're about 200 or so overall, about 50 in Munich, 30 odd in Madrid, and then remain 130-ish in the UK.
Do you ever stop
and into the office today for the first time? It feels very weird.
Nobody there.
No one's there. But I thought my dog and my wife together make so much noise. I didn't want to have a distraction.
Do you walk into the office on a normal working day when times are normal?
So I made the mistake of choosing to rent a flat close to the office to have a short commute.
Perfect.
Which right now I regret, and I wish I'd rented a flat with a garden a bit further out.
Yeah, I suppose it made sense. It made sense at the time, but not so much now. I mean, on that side, do you have much of a work-life balance? I mean, I know it's very difficult for people to set up businesses.
I think you'll get it as well, and lots of the kind of dealers who run their own businesses get it. It's not so much work-life balance is okay in terms of time in the office or time spent at the computer. What wears anyone who runs a business down is just it never leaves your mind. As in, it is the first thing you think about when you wake up. You wake up in the middle of the night, often thinking about it. You can't sleep because you're thinking about it. And it's not necessarily worrying about something. It's just often processing it. And it never leaves you. And I think that's the bit that, I mean, I've been doing it, same as you, a long time. You get used to it, but it isn't the desk time. It's purely that it's always on your mind.
It is quite hard to switch off, and I think more so now when your office is in your home, the temptation to turn the computers on and put a story together or check your emails is far higher than it ever has been in the past for me. But it's going to be difficult.
I'm not the best at managing it.
What about in the industry or in business in general? Who do you look up to, James? I mean, who do you really aspire to be like?
I mean, there's a lot of different people that we've got to know who have helped the business, who run, frankly, far bigger, more successful businesses. I think if I had to look at one kind of inspirational business leader, it is a very often quoted one. It is Jeff Bezos at Amazon. I think what he's done across every industry is clearly phenomenal. But the fact that they've been so customer-centric all the way through, I mean, it is just, you don't always think about it, but it is such a customer-centric business. And we've hired a few people from Amazon, interviewed many from Amazon. They just talk about the customer all the time. And I think we do that fairly well at Carwow. We need to get better at it, to be honest. We spend a lot more now than we used to on kind of user research and talking to people. But it is just incredible what they've done.
Who is the customer at Carwow? I mean, in your mind, is it the car buyer or is it the dealer?
It's a very good question. It's one that we've had many debates over the years. Ultimately, what we've landed on is, and it always has been this, it is the consumer. Because if you don't have the consumer, if you're not serving the consumer's needs, they will simply go somewhere else. So we do want to serve the dealer because the dealer, ultimately, if we have no dealers, we can't provide a customer experience whatsoever. So we're useless without either side of the market, with no value. But ultimately, we have to make a decision on the consumer because therefore they'll use business, they'll get in touch with the dealers we work with, it'll benefit it. And we have had those kind of difficult decisions. Like some of the things around originally, we wouldn't have launched Carwow on day one or when we switched to selling if we were purely car dealer focused. it wouldn't have been in their best interest in the short term to have done that whatsoever. But we do think in the long term, building out a way for consumers to buy a car that's very consumer friendly will serve the dealers we work with in the long term far, far, far better, and it will be more efficient overall.
What do you think is the most important thing you've learned over that decade you've been running the business?
I think it does come back again to just hire amazing people who work well for Carwow. And there are amazing people we've hired who've worked well for other businesses, but it's a different culture, a different way of working, and sometimes it just doesn't work with us. But where you have that people who we like to give a lot of kind of autonomy and let people get on with it and make it their own, and then it works fantastically well. It's where it doesn't that it gets painful and challenges come in, but ultimately it just means it's fun.
And when you're building a business from scratch like you have done, you have to do all of the hiring and firing for many years. Do you still get involved in that side of things?
100%, in both sides. But hiring, not in every single interview by any means anymore. And frankly, lots of the best people who've been at Carwow now, I never hired them. Someone else did, which is great to see. But yes, I get involved in both sides of that.
And if you were starting out the business again, would you go back, or what would you go back and tell yourself the most important piece of advice?
I think I would say be bolder in the middle stages. I think we're bold to start with. We made some big decisions that a little bit of a gamble, frankly. It would work or it wouldn't work, and it would fall flat on its face. I think we lost that over the last few years. We knew we had something good and we just kept optimizing it and tweaking, but not making radical changes. And there's a couple of changes we're making at the moment that are far bigger kind of step changes. They may not work. We may have to go backwards a bit. They may even lead to some kind of revenue loss, but we think it's a great opportunity to do it. We know revenue for the year is not going to be quite what we forecast. It's fine. We know that we're in a stronger position than ever in terms of online leads are everything now to dealers. So we've got a little bit more to lose on that front, and we can just make a better proposition overall.
And what do you love about running a business?
I think for me, it's the variety. Every single day is different. You have to do different things. You have to jump from a really boring financial forecasting meeting to a product meeting where it's quite interesting to an editorial thing. It's all completely different. And the industry is fascinating. I don't know so much about the car industry. I don't think anyone knows fully about the car industry, but there's so many different layers to it. There's so many complications. There's so many things that you'd love to do, but you can't do because of something else. And there's some amazing characters in it as well. The passion people have. I thought going into car industry, everyone would love cars. But I think in reality, with dealers and OEMs, most don't. They're not petrol heads, but they have a huge passion for this industry. And it is infectious to work with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't get bored doing my job, that's for sure. What do you hate about your job, James? And you're not allowed to say nothing.
I think it is when we get people who just don't work. Again, they may work fantastically somewhere else, but if it just doesn't work with how we like to work, or it's just hard work, everything gets a bit painful. And then you do have to have those difficult conversations and then end it in some way if they resist to change or coaching. It is reality of every business, but I think made harder in Carwow, same with any tech startup, because it's a very different business every year. So 3 years ago, I don't know, we were 70 people or something just starting in Germany. Now it's completely different. You need different skills. You need people who are adaptable. Some people can't cope with the change. You do need that adaptability. And some people are great 1 year, but then for whatever reason, not quite the next year. And it's hard. A huge amount of people have built Carwow to where it is today. And many of them no longer with us, but they have played a big part along the way.
And is culture important to you? You know, I'm looking at you in your office. You know, you've clearly got like a kind of Google feel to the office where people can sit down and chill out.
Not very relevant right now.
No, not right now. But I take it. Is culture important to you when you put a tech business together?
It is, and I think again, it's changed hugely over the years. Not so much how we define our culture, but how we think about it. Because Carwow, again, 3 years ago, a huge amount less people. Had a bit more of a family feel. Everyone knew each other by name, they recognized each other. We're almost all just in one office in London. Now it's spread across 3 countries, a lot more remote people, even pre this. People don't know each other necessarily. It doesn't feel the same way. And I don't think we codify it. We didn't write it down enough and stress test it enough, which we hurt from. We had some people who weren't quite right. They built teams in a slightly different culture, didn't quite fit in, and we've fixed those mistakes over the last 18 months or so. But it definitely slowed us down and caused pain. And I think the office is nice, but again, since whatever it was mid-March, we've just shown that it doesn't matter where you are. You can have a great culture remote. This office is nice, but again, it's frankly completely pointless right now. But still, Carwow is frankly more efficient than ever. The crisis has helped everyone focus, helped people bond, helped people come together. And frankly, we're doing better because of it.
Talk to us a little bit about the marketing strategy that's been behind Carwow, James, because, you know, I know Matt Watson. He's a very good friend of mine, and I've seen his journey with you, and it's been absolutely incredible.
And you introduced us?
Oh, yeah, of course. That was, yeah.
I think that lunch,
thank you for that.
That lunch we had together, I think it was Covent Garden from memory, that was the interview.
Well, hopefully that's worked out well for you both. But I mean, you clearly invested a lot of money in video and in what Matt does. Yeah. It's been very, very successful. Was that more of a gamble, or did you know that was going to work?
No, I think it wasn't a gamble. Ultimately, we knew, again, Carwow's aim has always been to ultimately help people make the right decision for them. We knew that video was, back then and now more than ever, a really important part of that lots of people would rather watch a video for 10 minutes about a car than read 2,000 words. They'd rather watch a video than go to the showroom and sit in it and look at the boot and even test drive. So we knew it was very, very important. So we wanted to invest in it. I'd seen Matt presenting on a different channel and thought he's great. He's a really good presenter, breaks it down really clearly. So that, along with the written editorial, is a key part of educating people to make the right choice for them. And I think if you watch the reviews, it's quite opinionated. Well, there's no such thing as a bad car. There's just some cars that are better for some people who care about certain things, and we just want to make that very clear. Matt sometimes gets me in a bit of trouble for what he says, but we wouldn't have it any other way. We want that full honesty. And if you say a car's ugly, if he says a car's ugly, or if he says it's a really comfortable ride, some people might think, all right, that's your opinion. I don't care about the ride quality. I don't care about the looks. I'll make a decision anyway. So it does work very well. And it's something we're investing in Germany and Spain as well.
And going back to when you launched the website, you had with Carwows, I mean, you sort of spotted that there was a reason to have that content, and clearly that has helped drive the business going forward with these sorts of investments.
No, exactly. So it does come back to people find it very difficult to choose which car to buy. And I think some of the traditional car magazines, etc., even nowadays still, they're almost either quite boring, consumer focused, very dry, quite technical, or they're generally petrol head. They're aimed at enthusiasts, and that alienates people. People don't understand the language. They don't care about what those petrol heads care about. We always want to do it in a kind of common sense, plain English speaking language, so that people make the right choice for
them. James, talk to me about where Carwow's going to be in 5 years' time, because clearly you've already explained it's changed hugely over the last few years. Where do you see it in 5 years?
So, I mean, we see it, I mean, first of all, across more countries. We think the problem, the opportunity is the same in every country. Largely hasn't been solved in most by any tech firm or business. So we think opportunities to do what we're doing. I think if you look at the existing markets, we want to be even bigger in new car, nearly new cars. So generally, cars that are approved, manufacturer warranty, etc. Big opportunity for us. We're in it. We send a lot of leads to dealers on it, but we can get a lot bigger. There's a lot of problems with the difference being that new cars are a commodity. Frankly, they all come from the same factory. They're all the same from any dealer. Used cars, every single one is slightly different. So more risk for a consumer, more education needed. But consumers will be willing to buy them remotely, buy them online, have them delivered. And we want to help dealers, give them that digital showroom to help them do that. There are competitors coming in directly to compete with dealers on that. But what dealers need is they've got the facilities to buy cars fantastically, prep them fantastically, deliver them fantastically. They just need that reach to consumers, and that's what we can give them.
Because I'm right in thinking that Alex Chesterman, Cazoo's founder, is one of your investors.
Yeah, he was one of the people that we cold email to reach. Who we saw him built Love Film, Zoopla, fantastic businesses, very, very successful. So he angel invested in us 7-ish years ago. So he owns a very small piece of Carwow. He's not involved in the business whatsoever, but he was one of the angel investors way back when, yeah.
And there's clearly some synergies between those two businesses when it comes to he's delivering those used cars to people's homes. If you can service up some of the buyers,
exactly. But I mean, I think Kazoo is a very interesting business. Serves a need for a niche portion of consumers who want a car delivered, happy to do everything. We do think it's niche versus the mainstream, but we also think it's a big enough niche that traditional dealers need to focus on it. They need to offer the same kind of choice for consumers who want that. What they'll struggle with is, again, not buying cars correctly, not prepping cars correctly, but actually reaching consumers and giving that kind of trusted environment.
So you're going to move away from just purely doing new cars and moving into the used car market, effectively.
Oh yeah, so we have done that already over the last couple of years. So nearly new car for some of our dealers, nearly new car leads outnumber the number of new car leads that we deliver them. So it is a big part of our business. It's just we know it can get a lot bigger.
And what's your exit strategy, James? I mean, you can't do this forever. There's a lot of investors well, maybe you can. There's a lot of investors who put in a lot of money who are probably going to want to see it back someday.
Yeah.
What are you planning? A float, a sale? I mean, what is your?
I think it's something that I used to think about a lot in the very early days. I think I had a naive ambition of, you can grow a business, then after a few years you can sell it, and then you can whatever, go to the beach, retire, whatever. In reality, it's not the aim whatsoever anymore. I think we have investors who want to return, but there's lots of ways that investors can cash out as we grow. So if you think about an IPO, so going public on the stock market, that's not really an exit whatsoever. That's just another way of raising money. It does give some liquidity for existing investors to sell, but you can offer that through private traditional fundraising anyway. It's definitely not an exit for founders, for management. In fact, the work only gets harder if you're a public business. And I do think that's an option down the line, but there's a lot of disadvantages. We're not looking for an outright acquisition, so outright sell, because again, we're just scratching the surface of what we can do. Yes, we've been at it for a long time, but again, it's only going one direction. And to do it now would just be, it doesn't matter how much money people would make. I personally would feel we just didn't achieve what we could have done. So it'd be disappointment. And I think I have no plans to go anywhere else. It's hard work, it's good fun. So what's the rush to do anything?
Do you think the coronavirus has set back those sorts of plans for an IPO in any way?
No, I think so. Yes, we'll have less revenue than we thought we would at the start of the year. We have a kind of dip in revenue, very obvious, linked directly to lockdown. Obviously, it's come back very nicely. We're way above year on year and way above February even. How long that lasts for, I don't know. What revenue looks like at the end of the year, we don't know. We've got very rough forecasts, but we just, the honest answer is we don't know. But what it doesn't change is the consumer proposition, the dealer proposition. It only accelerates the need for dealers to have an online presence to capture people. Walk-ins are only going in one direction. So it only strengthens Carwow as a long-term position overall. It doesn't matter if short-term, this year's revenue is less than last year's.
And James, finally, what's Carwow's biggest opportunity going forward?
It comes back to consumers find buying a car very, very, very challenging. It's just such a fascinating purchase. It's second biggest financial decision, second biggest monthly commitment after the mortgage or the rent. Such a subjective choice. There's so much choice of cars. New cars alone, hundreds of models. Add in nearly new cars, just endless choice. You've got leasing, you've got PCP, you've got HP. Consumers don't understand any of those three. Comparing the differences, you've got different suppliers, you've got leasing companies, OEMs starting to go direct, dealers going direct, the likes of Kazoo, used car supermarkets. Choice is endless for consumers. And I think that choice is only going to get more confusing. So you're going to have car subscription comes in, car sharing, rental companies will start to do long-term rentals. There'll be more tech companies who try and get involved. Choice is just going up and up and up and up for consumers. So more need for that clarity and comparison side.
James, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. I really, really appreciate you giving up your time. And
thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and good luck. Yeah, good luck with those huge expansion plans. So thank you very much for James for joining me today. If you want to get involved in car dealer lives like this one, you can email me. It's james@blackpoolmedia.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter @CarDealerEd or send me a message on LinkedIn. If you haven't already, download the brand new Car Dealer Magazine digital issue. You can find it on the homepage of our website, cardealermagazine.co.uk. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Goodbye.